Madam Secretary, Acting Inspector General Florence Yu, Mr. City Attorney Carlos De La Guerra, and members of the public, today is Tuesday, February 25th, 2025. It is 9:30 a.m. This is a regular meeting of the Los Angeles Board of Police Commissioners. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Good morning. Please let the record reflect that Commissioners Suthers, Shields, Calanche, Garcia, and Sanchez-Gordon are present, and we have a quorum. Mr. President?
Thank you. We welcome everyone attending this morning. The Police Commission is committed to ensuring equal access to its meetings. It is requested that individuals who require the services of a translator contact the Board Secretary no later than the day preceding the meeting. Whenever possible, a translator will be provided. Sign language interpreters, assistive listening devices, or other auxiliary aids and/or services may be provided upon request. To ensure availability, you are advised to make your request at least 72 hours prior to the meeting you wish to attend. All public comment will be heard on item number 2 on the agenda. We'll dedicate a total of 45 minutes to public comment. Members of the public will have 1 minute per agenda item for a maximum of 2 minutes total. At the request of the speaker will then be given 1 additional minute for general public comment for a maximum of 3 minutes total. The order of the speakers will be: a speaker in this room will go first, then we will take a speaker watching today's meeting on Zoom. We will alternate between speakers in the room and Zoom for a total of 45 minutes. Members of the public who participate in public comment are reminded that they can speak to any item on the agenda or a matter within the jurisdiction of the Board of Police Commissioners. Public comment is your opportunity to address the board, so you're free to express your opinion on matters before the board and to generally express when you disagree with other opinions expressed. However, directing your comments to other individuals who have spoken or attacking others who have expressed their opinions shall be deemed off-topic, and your public comment period will be concluded. Members of the public, if you choose to participate in the public comment portion of the agenda, you can participate in this meeting in a number of ways outlined on the agenda. Message for those attending the meeting in person. These meetings are regular meetings between the board, the department, and key stakeholders. Meetings of the Board of Police Commissioners are open to the public. The state's Ralph M. Brown Act affords the public their opportunity to present at the meetings, hear the presentations and dialogue in real time, and provide feedback via the public comment period. During these meetings, there's a need for the board to carry out public business expeditiously without delays or disruptions. Members of the audience shall not engage in any conduct which causes an actual disruption of the meeting. Those attending in person are reminded that disruptive behavior will be cause for removal. If you disrupt this meeting, you will be provided with 1 and only 1 warning to cease disruptive behavior. If you fail to cease such behavior, you will be removed from the meeting. All attendees must be seated. Failure to follow this rule will result in a warning and/or removal from the meeting. Before we move to the agenda items, I'd like to address a recent news story about the department's recruitment division. I believe that I can speak for all members of the Police Commission when I say that the behavior alleged is unacceptable. The Los Angeles Police Department prides itself on its high recruitment standards and its merit-based selection process. To hear, even in allegations, that this may not be the case is concerning, and I'd like to assure the public that the department is conducting a full investigation. The Office of the Inspector General is monitoring this investigation, and they have from the onset of those allegations. And I thank them in advance for their continued attention to this matter. The other item I'd like to mention is we're going to be moving regular agenda item 4C, a department's report, to a later date when the speaker is available to address the board. With that, we will move to item number 1, the report of the Chief of Police. Chief McDonald.
Morning, President Suthers, Vice President Shields, Commissioners, Acting Inspector General Yu, City Attorney De La Guerra, and Mr. Sibley. Today I'll be discussing significant events from the previous 2 weeks, providing a crime update, and discussing our personnel strength. During the previous 2 weeks, we had 2 officer-involved shootings. The first involves Metropolitan Division. On February 11th, at approximately 9:55, Harbor Division uniformed officers responded to a radio call of a 415 man with a gun at Western Avenue and Lomita Boulevard. When the officers arrived in the area, they observed the suspect, later identified as Samuel Condi, armed with a revolver and walking east on 254th Street from Bellport Avenue. That's in the Harbor City area. As they attempted to contact Condi, he began to run, and the officers initiated a foot pursuit. Condi ultimately ran to the rear of the residence at 25718 Bellport Avenue, which was overgrown with foliage and littered with large mounds of debris. Metropolitan Division K-9 personnel responded, searched the yard, determined that Condi was hiding inside a metal storage shed. Condi was given multiple commands to surrender, however, he refused. The officers requested the resources of Metropolitan Division Special Weapon and Tactics, who responded and began negotiating with Condi to surrender. Approximately 1 hour later, Condi was observed in the yard holding a revolver while walking in the direction of officers, and an officer-involved shooting occurred. Despite being struck by gunfire, Condi refused to surrender, prompting the use of a beanbag shotgun, a taser, and a directed canine bite. He was subsequently taken into custody without further incident. Los Angeles Fire Department personnel who were staged at the scene immediately rendered aid to Condi. He was then transported by rescue ambulance to a local hospital where he was treated for his wounds and cleared for booking. No officers or other community members were injured during the incident. Condi's handgun has not been located, however. A discharged 38 caliber cartridge casing was recovered in the yard near where he was taken into custody. Force Investigation Division investigators responded to the scene and continue to investigate this incident. The second OIS was in Wilshire Division. On February 19th, Wilshire Area Uniformed Gang Enforcement Detail officers were assisting with a burglary task force when they became involved in a vehicle pursuit of a possible burglary suspect. During the pursuit, the suspect, who was later identified as Quentin Monk, drove to the area of Oakwood Avenue and June Street, entering a cul-de-sac. Monk turned the vehicle around and accelerated toward officers, resulting in an officer-involved shooting. Monk refused to stop and continued to flee in his vehicle as a pursuit continued, terminating at the intersection of Beverly Boulevard and Wilton Avenue when he collided with an occupied vehicle. After the collision, Monk attempted to escape on foot, but was quickly taken into custody. Monk was not struck during the OIS, and no officers were injured during the incident. However, the driver of the vehicle involved in the collision was transported to a local hospital and treated for minor injuries. Force Investigation Division investigators responded to the scene and are investigating this incident as well. Year to date, we've had 5 officer-involved shootings, the same number as this time last year. We had a pursuit that ended in a traffic collision on February 16th, about 23:50 hours. Central Patrol officers responded to the area of 1100 East 5th Street following 2 recent radio calls, one of which reported 3 armed men wearing ski masks at a private party club event. While on scene, a security guard from the event pointed out a gray Mercedes and shouted, "They have a gun." Officers tactically approached the vehicle, which was occupied by 2 males. As officers attempted to order them out of the vehicle, the suspects ignored commands and fled at a high rate of speed. A vehicle pursuit was initiated at 5th and Alameda. As suspects entered the Santa Monica Freeway, officers lost visual contact, but the air unit located the vehicle as it exited at Los Angeles Street. While exiting, the suspect vehicle ran a red light and collided with 2 uninvolved motorists. All individuals remained in their vehicles until officers arrived. The passenger in the vehicle, passenger in the suspect vehicle and the driver of one of the uninvolved vehicles sustained fractures and were transported to a local hospital for treatment. The driver of the suspect vehicle, identified as a juvenile, complained of pain but had no significant injuries. The driver and passenger of the third vehicle were not injured. The juvenile suspect was booked for felony evading, and due to the seriousness of the injuries sustained, the multidisciplinary investigation team responded to the scene and is handling the investigation. On February 22nd, at approximately 2010 hours, Central Area Uniformed Patrol officers were in the vicinity of Grand Avenue on Washington Boulevard when they observed a motorcyclist believed to be part of a larger group seen in the area earlier. Officers attempted to conduct a traffic stop, but the motorcyclist failed to yield and subsequently crashed into a streetlight. Officers immediately stopped, took the subject into custody, and rendered aid. The motorcyclist, a 16-year-old male, was transported to the hospital where he was treated for multiple fractures, an intracranial hemorrhage, and a lacerated aorta. He was cited for reckless driving. The multidisciplinary collision investigation team responded to the scene and is handling the traffic collision investigation. On February 21st, at approximately 3:10 in the morning, West Valley officers observed two masked burglary suspects exiting a closed California restaurant carrying a crowbar and a hammer. A third suspect, a female, was waiting in a parked white Mercedes-Benz. As officers attempted to investigate, the suspects fled, leading to a 7-minute pursuit on freeways and surface streets. During the pursuit, the suspects slowed near the 101 freeway on-ramp. The primary unit maneuvered to avoid a collision, but struck a curb and a light pole. The secondary unit then collided with the primary unit, resulting in one officer sustaining minor injuries. The officer was treated and released from a local hospital. Valley Traffic Division has handled the collision investigation. The suspect later crashed in the Tarzana Hospital parking lot, where all suspects fled on foot. Officers impounded the Mercedes and recovered burglary tools and other evidence. Further investigation by Van Nuys detectives linked the vehicle to the female driver, who was later arrested for burglary and evading police. Detectives are working to identify the remaining suspects. Over the past week, we've seen a concerning rise in burglary incidents across the San Fernando Valley, particularly in Devonshire, Van Nuys, and West Valley areas. These crimes have targeted both businesses and residents, with suspects acting in coordinated efforts to gain entry, steal property, and evade law enforcement. On February 16th and 17th, 3 residential burglaries were reported in West Valley, all involving a silver BMW 3 Series. Surveillance footage recovered from each location helped link these incidents, and during the investigation, officers recovered a lighter dropped by one of the suspects, which has been submitted for DNA analysis. The suspect vehicle was later found and impounded in the city of Palmdale, where detectives recovered gloves and expired identification cards belonging to burglary victims. Efforts to identify the suspects are ongoing, with assistance from multiple divisions and investigative resources. In Devonshire, during the early mornings of February 17th, 3 businesses, a Taco Bell, Yonder Coffee, and Jamba Juice, were burglarized in quick succession. In each case, suspects shattered the front glass doors to gain entry, ransacked the locations, and fled. CCTV footage suggests these burglaries were committed by the same group, who used a blue Hyundai sedan during at least one of the crimes. As of now, no investigative lead has been established to identify the suspects, but a crime alert is pending. In Van Nuys, officers responded to an attempted residential burglary at 8:30 a.m. on February 17th. A group of 5 suspects arrived in a 2006 silver BMW, with 4 individuals entering the victim's property via the backyard. Thanks to an alert neighbor who contacted police, suspects fled before gaining entry. The vehicle, later identified as having an active felony warrant from West LA, was impounded by the LA County Sheriff's Department, but the suspects remain at large. These incidents highlight a troubling trend of organized burglary crews operating in the valley. The department is using every available tool to identify and apprehend those responsible. We're coordinating efforts across multiple divisions and agencies, ensuring information is shared efficiently. As captured on news yesterday, on February 22nd at about 4:30 in the afternoon, a group of bicyclists attacked a driver near San Vicente and Carrillo Drive. The incident began as a verbal dispute and escalated when some suspects vandalized the victim's vehicle, prompting him to get out of the car. The group then physically assaulted him, punching and kicking him even after he fell to the ground. Wilshire detectives are actively investigating. The video evidence confirms that the suspects damaged the vehicle and assaulted the victim. Detectives have identified witnesses, reviewed additional footage, and linked this group to a robbery at a Rampart area 7-Eleven on the same day. The same suspects also attempted to enter a 7-Eleven in West Los Angeles, but employees, recognizing the threat, locked the doors, activated the alarm, preventing another crime. A news release has been issued, and efforts to identify the suspects is ongoing, working with other divisions and law enforcement partners to compare video footage and explore investigative leads. Wilshire detectives will follow up with the victim and continue coordinating with specialized units on strategies to address large groups of disruptive bicyclists. Over the past 4 weeks, overall crime trends in Los Angeles have shown a slight decline, with combined persons and property crimes down just under 1% compared to the previous period. Persons crimes have decreased by 3.8%, while property crimes remain stable. While homicides remain down 22.2% year-to-date compared to 2024, we have seen an increase in the past month, with homicides rising by 92.3%, or 12 more homicides compared to the prior 4 weeks. Additionally, the number of shooting victims has increased by 37.7%, or 26 more shooting victims in the past month, with notable spikes in Southeast, Topanga, and Southwest areas. On a positive note, aggravated assaults have decreased 3.5%, or 38 crimes over the past 4 weeks. We're continuing to monitor this activity. However, no trend or pattern has been associated with the increase. Robberies are down 4.6% over the last month. Burglaries have increased by 18.6% over the last month. Several divisions, including Devonshire, Olympic, Van Nuys, Pacific, Northeast, and Topanga, have experienced notable increases. Residential burglaries have risen sharply by almost 34%, with significant spikes in Olympic, Pacific, Devonshire, and Topanga areas. Non-residential burglaries have increased by 4.6%, with Devonshire and West LA seeing the largest jumps. Several burglary crews have been identified as possibly being involved. Our detectives are working to apprehend those suspects responsible, and we continue to deploy additional resources to troubled areas. Vehicle thefts remain relatively stable, down 0.5%, or 9 incidents over the last 4 weeks. And then on our update on our personnel strength as of February 24th, sworn personnel is currently holding at 8778. Civilian personnel staffing is at 2664, and reserve officers are at 379. That completes my report this morning, Mr. President.
Thank you, Chief. Just one question. I'd like to go to the personnel that are deployed for the fires regarding access to their homes, escorts to their homes, traffic control. What percentage or what number of people do we have still doing that? And is it still 12 on, 12 off in deployment?
Yeah, we have still a contingent out there, and it varies. We have, I believe it's 2 and 20 a day, but I'll get you the exact numbers. The CHP are still deployed in the Palisades area, assisting with crime suppression efforts, and the National Guard are still on scene as well. So we've been able to retain those assets for an extended period of time, and they have been very, very helpful. We have also been able to, I think, deter people from coming into that area and, doing what otherwise might be burglaries or looting events.
And Chief, going back to your comments about the February 22nd attack at San Vicente and Carrillo, these bicycle crews have been extremely problematic over the last year. We had a presentation by the task force here several months ago. What's being done to address that? I do know that in some instances, they obviously are becoming a little bit more aggressive. They're taunting people out of their cars. When they get out of their cars, unfortunately, they've done to this gentleman,
Right.
to others. What actions are we taking, and does this seem to be organized in any way?
Yeah, it does seem to be organized. The actions we're taking is an investigative follow-up using a video to try and identify the individuals as best we can. As I mentioned, that they had shown up at 2 other 7-Elevens. There'll be video most likely at those locations. Some of these are masked up as they do this, so that makes it a little bit more difficult. But they're trying to put this together, identify these individuals, and hold them accountable. When you have serial events like this, it's a relatively, in this case, 20 to 30, not small, but the same people doing this over and over again. So as we get investigative leads, I think with some arrests, we can have a major impact on seeing the reoccurrence of this.
Okay, thank you. I'll open up the floor for other questions or comments of Vice President Shields.
Thank you, President Southers, and thank you, Chief, for the report. I'll go back to the news report that President Southers mentioned at the outset. Obviously, the hearing about allegations that there were racist, sexist comments being made by officers, particularly those in the recruiting office, is very troubling, to say the least. And not only is it troubling that officers are making these types of statements, but also that they're making them so openly, which tells me, it indicates either that everyone thought that this was acceptable behavior, or that they thought that nothing would happen to them if they got caught, which is, again, troubling in terms of how seriously is the department taking these types of allegations, and how seriously does the department take allegations of improper remarks being made. And I know we've had people come to the commission and complain that certain things that they've been called, like black fool, was seen as non-disciplinary. I think both the Inspector General's office and I personally, and potentially other commissioners, feel like that's not the appropriate result. So how is it that, and I understand that individual discipline is outside the purview of the commission. That's not something that LA City Charter gives us any authority over. But I'd ask the executive director, Django, to work with the department to give us as commissioners more visibility into the types of discipline that is being meted out for these types of improper comments, and also other things of concern that we've talked about before, like DUIs. I think it's important for the commission to see more regularly what that looks like. And so, Chief, to you, and I understand there's an ongoing investigation and can't get into any of those details, but can you talk generally about, what steps you've taken in terms of dealing with the people who are involved, ensuring that the whistleblower is not retaliated against, and also, given that this was done in the recruiting office, whether there's any steps to look at people who may have been rejected based on animus or any other, improper motivation.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate the concern and the support that we've gotten from the commission. Working with the IG right from the beginning, as soon as we became aware of this, we put together a team to look at it, internal affairs, and we have relieved and assigned to home those that are involved as we could determine. The investigation is still ongoing. It led to a further individual being identified, and then later a command staff officer on an unrelated, directly to this case, but not dissimilar allegation. So we move forward. We take it very seriously. I think that you'll see as the investigation proceeds, we'll be able to keep you up to speed a little bit more on what we found and what actions will be taken. But of great concern to all of you and certainly to all of us that where recruiting is such a critical piece of our ability to be able to move forward, that it be done as well as it possibly can be and beyond reproach. And so the people who work in those areas are held to a very high standard. This was very disappointing to everybody. But we took immediate action, brought in or worked with the Inspector General, and as we continue to move forward with this, people who will be held appropriately accountable for their behavior.
And is the department taking any steps to make sure that the person who kind of disclosed this information is not being penalized in any way?
Yeah, it was an anonymous complaint, but certainly if identification is made, that's a consideration we'll take seriously as well. Thank you. Sure.
Thank you, Vice President Shields. Commissioner Kalanche.
No questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Garcia.
None, thank you.
Commissioner Sanchez-Gordon.
Yes, I have a question. Thank you, Chief, for your report. Could you just elaborate a little bit more on those 12 new homicides, 90% plus increase since the last time, since a similar time period? What areas were these homicides in?
Yeah, I got a brief yesterday, and I'd have to get back to you on the specifics of that without going through all the books here. I'm happy to do that. But there were a couple of multiples around the city, and I can get to you on the areas, but that certainly impacted the numbers. Multiples meaning that the same suspect is involved in those crimes. Yeah, if I could, I'll get back to you offline on those numbers.
Thank you, Chief.
Sure.
Thank you. We now go to agenda item number 2, public comment. Madam Secretary, please call our first speaker.
Our first speaker is Jenna.
My name is Jenna Miscavige. My uncle David Miscavige is the leader of Scientology. I was born and raised in Scientology, and just before my second birthday, my parents moved our family right here to Los Angeles to join Scientology's most dedicated group, where they signed 1 billion-year contracts dedicating all of our souls, lifetime after lifetime, to Scientology. Joining this group meant I would never live in a home with my parents for the entirety of my childhood. It also meant being deprived of an education and being worked for long hours each day, digging trenches, hauling rocks, and being exposed to dangerous chemicals and handling asbestos, all before the age of 12 years old. It meant being shipped across the country from my family at 12 years old and not seeing my parents but for a few moments for the remainder of my childhood. It meant being forbidden to call them and physically restrained from doing so, while having no way of communicating with them that wasn't monitored and intercepted by Scientology. It meant years of soul-destroying interrogations while being in a room I could not leave, being asked questions of a sexual nature day after day for years while being videotaped. Today, I am a mother of 2 beautiful children, and only now can I fully understand what this government-sanctioned, tax-exempt organization really takes away from the children who grow up there, and the devastating lifelong damage it does to those who have no way of protecting themselves. And they do this through controlling their parents. The document you're about to hear is in LAPD's possession via a computer hard drive that was obtained as part of the Danny Masterson case. The hard drive was imaged, metadata secured, it's been forensically authenticated by LAPD, and lays bare Scientology's corruption, how they put the organization's interests above the safety and basic human rights of its parishioners. The ones who suffer the most are Scientology's children, the ones who suffer the most are the children of Scientology's parishioners and staff because they cannot protect themselves and they don't know any different. I was one of those children, and there are so many others. I'm here today to make sure their voices are heard. This letter was copied to Scientology's Legal Affairs Office, Scientology's Chief Ethics Officer, as well as to the chaplain and the file of the alleged predator. Where was the mandatory reporting to the proper authorities?
Thank you.
Next, we have Betty Lay.
Good morning.
Good morning. What items would you like to speak on?
Chief's report, agenda items, public comment, please.
Okay, 3 minutes.
First off, I'd like to thank the chief for his report. And I'd also like for you to look into having the neighborhood prosecutor program brought back. I know our city attorney met with our group and said she would not be eliminating the program, though she lied, and within the next couple of weeks, it was gone. It's a wonderful program. It has proven to increase vulnerability and promise and good results. We just really need it back. Also, for agenda items, I support the donation items, and I support agenda items L and M. And with that, I hope everybody stays healthy and safe, and I yield the rest of my time.
Okay, next we have Serge Delmar.
So this is the follow-up letter of what Jenna just mentioned. I was a child that was trafficked into a Scientology hotel as well, and exactly like Jenna said, we were horrifically abused. This is what's in LAPD's possession. A letter that says, from a Scientology mother, Greg, Bill and I, to say the least, are disappointed and disgusted with your perverted sexual addiction. On a personal level, you put us at risk by using our home computers to go to child porn sites. The internet is monitored activity, and you know, as many lawsuits that we consult, testify in, and all the subpoenas we get at any time, our computers could have ended up in some courtroom. Child pornography is a federal offense. As a law student, you knew. You lived with us at our expense and violated practically every room in our home. You are in treason to Bill and I. Not only did you masturbate all over my house, but you also had to violate our offices, the same company that paid $33,000 for you to go to law school. As if that wasn't bad enough, you took it a step further and used our clients' computers and printers to masturbate to, and then the Commonwealth Title Company's employees caught you and confronted you, and you continued anyways. Let us not even talk to you about the lawyer's Ventura. Just another incident. The whole title industry knows that we are Scientologists, and you have done a lot to damage our good opinion they had of us. What you did in regards to my daughter, she's totally capable of handling by herself. What is unspeakable is your action in regards to my 7-year-old family member. Let me be specific about that for the other parties who have been CC'd. When you were at the beach with her class, all of a sudden you had to pee, and you as an adult male with no medical problems could not wait to go next door to the restaurant, and you had to wait until everyone in her class had left and take her into a portable toilet because it was such an emergency, and you were so concerned for her safety. You told her to close her eyes and she peeked. She yelled at her when she tried to handle her upset over what she saw. We asked her, what did you hear him pee? She said, I don't remember him pee. I don't know if he peed or just squeezed it. She has more to tell us. I'm sure she will. If I ever catch you even looking at her, I will call the cops. Do not let me see you with any other child. I will go to the parents and tell them all about you. This is a promise. This is a Scientology mother. This is what she knows. The LAPD is not protecting or serving the kids that have grown up in Scientology. You have this document and you've done nothing.
Thank you.
Next, we have R.
Art?
I will speak to all
One second.
items.
Okay, 3 minutes.
All right, starting off with the chief's report. The chief's report should be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes at every meeting. If the chief's report exceeds 3 minutes, we shall match the amount of time the chief takes. Regardless of how long the chief takes to provide his comment, all speakers should be able to hear or be able to speak regardless of whether you were called in or whether you were in person. And if you don't like the person who signed up for comment, you should still take their comment instead of filtering them out and screening the calls. All right. And, and of course we have the whole scandal you were talking about. And, Rasha mentioned about the whole, they probably did it because they didn't think anyone happened. That's because it's true. You're not going to do anything. Everyone knows that. And, it really, I think there's some kind of really extreme culture going on here or something. Because, this is how the LAPD treats, individuals who are trying to become one of you, who are trying to become cops. How do they talk about just random citizens and such? That's kind of interesting. The interesting question there. And of course the LAPD continues to do the violent, car chases that get other people injured. All right, let's move on to the consent agenda. We have something related to like firing ranges or something. Is this where they train to shoot civilians or something? Um, we have like a VR thing. It's really weird. We have an automated license plate reader. Is that going to be used to send data to ICE for their mass deportations that are targeting undocumented immigrants and causing harm to them. We have $14,000 for the police memorial ceremony. Only that money was spent to remembering all the people shot by the LAPD. We have, let's see, we have a canopy for the bomb squad. Is that where they do their press conferences before they blow up the neighborhood? We have a video wall screen repair. We have $21,000 for morale and well-being. Again, nothing buys morale and well-being like $21,000 for one division. We have $2,500 for the hosting fund, $900 for storage. This is just a ridiculous thing. But yeah, just a big mess. Yeah.
Okay, next we have Aaron Smith.
All Scientology wants is to be treated just like all the world's major religions. And even though there's only about 25,000 Scientologists in the entire world, I think they should get exactly what they want. In a letter dated May 2nd, 2019, the then California Attorney General wrote to the Archbishop of the Catholic Archdiocese of LA requesting that church officials preserve documents related to clergy abuse allegations. Quote, "The California DOJ is conducting a review of your archdiocese's handling of sexual misconduct allegations involving children, including whether your archdiocese has adequately reported allegations of sexual misconduct as required under California's Child Abuse and Neglect Reporting Act." California's Child Abuse and Neglect Reporting Act, or CANRA, was signed into law in 1981. In 1997, CANRA was updated to include all clergy members as mandatory reporters. It is not a coincidence that in 1997, Scientology issued an order to its senior staff that all internal ethics reports detailing crimes committed by Scientologists were to have any incriminating words, such as rape or child sex abuse, removed from the report and replaced with certain codes before such reports were sent up to management. This is according to former high-ranking Sea Org member Claire Headley, who testified under oath as an expert witness in Scientology at the Danny Masterson rape trial just over 1 year ago. When the DDA asked Claire Headley under oath, quote, "If a person were to report another member for a crime such as rape, is there any policy or direction that ethics officer would take in writing that report?" Claire Headley answered, "Yes. In 1997, an order was issued where terms of a sensitive nature, such as rape and sexual assault, were no longer to be written in reports because copies of those reports go to RTC and OSA, which are two senior high-level Scientology organizations. And they would use a code to remove those terms from the reports. Scientology's most dedicated clergy members are called Sea Org members. These are the individuals who signed the billion-year contracts in service to Scientology. Under CANRA, all Scientology Sea Org members, as clergy members, are mandated reporters for child abuse, including child sex abuse. Reports must be made immediately or as soon as practically possible, and to the civil authorities, not just to the internal Scientology authorities. I can tell you from personal experience of having been a Scientologist and a Sea Org member, it is 100% directly against Scientology policy to ever report another Scientologist to the civil authorities at any time for any reason, including child rape. Reporting another Scientologist to the civil authorities gets you expelled from Scientology. Raping doesn't get you expelled. Reporting it does get you expelled. CANRA is the law of the land. This is the standard we are asking Scientology to be held to. It is the standard all other religions are held to. We ask that a grand jury be impaneled in LA to investigate cover-up of child sex crimes within Scientology. We have copies of transcripts of our statements and some supplemental information for anybody who would like a copy.
Thank you.
Next, we have Steve Riley.
Good morning.
Good morning. What items would you like to speak on?
All items, please.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank Becky, Police Commission staff, for helping with a situation last week where letters were submitted to be posted on the lapdonline.org site, and they were not posted. So she helped to resolve the situation in a positive way. She was very professional, and very helpful. So thank you. We talked about recruitment today, and I want to point out that the last class had 25, only 25 recruits graduate. The goal is 60. Now, if you look at the demographic breakdown from the website, lapdonline.org, the breakdown of the 25 is 18 Hispanic, 4 African Americans, 2 Asians, and 1 Hawaiian. I'm using your terminology. I don't use that terminology. And if you go on to the letter that I posted for today, you'll see more detail on my thoughts on this subject. But there is conspicuously a group missing. And I don't believe in grouping people by race, just for the record. But I do not see any recruit graduate of what I would call European descent. Now, why is that? Is there a whole population pool that is not interested in becoming police officers? Or is this an issue of discrimination, of a certain population pool not feeling welcome in the LAPD? I think that needs to be examined. There needs to be an investigation as to why. This is not the only time this has occurred. I brought this up when Interim Chief Choi presided over the first graduation class he presided over. So what is going on at the LAPD in terms of recruitment? Now, whatever happened with those, there's been allegations of racial remarks or such. I really would like to know details at some point, and I guess we will get them eventually. But everyone has to be one color in the LAPD, blue, blue. And we need to have a culture of one standard. I've heard different remarks, and whatever the subject is, recruitment, hiring, promotion, enforcement of the law as regards certain religions, there must be one standard, a culture of one standard. And I will leave you with that, a culture of one standard. And by the way, police commissioners, ask questions. There are 2 police commissioners didn't have any questions at all. You have to care, you have to be competent. If you're not, resign your position. God bless you, LAPD, and thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Michael.
Members of the Police Commission, thank you for letting me speak today. What we just heard in the letter that was just read out to you is not an allegation. It is not an admission. It's a mother in Scientology who is admitted to crimes against children in that letter. I invite each and every single one of you to take a moment today, get a copy of this letter, and read through it. This is damning evidence that has been in the hands of the LAPD. How many mandated reporters does it take to ensure not a single report is filed? The law is clear. Scientology, along with the LAPD, is legally bound to report such abuse under the 1997 Child Protection Act and now reinforced by the Assembly Bill 506. Institutions like Scientology are mandated to report child abuse. Where are the reports? I ask you once again, take time and read this letter today. AB 506 requires that during auditing sessions of any religious counseling involving a minor, that at least 2 mandated reporters are present. Professionals are legally obligated to report abuse, must be present in all personnel. Rigorous live scanning background checks are supposed to be happening with these mandated reporters. Where are those? Yet, despite these safeguards, credible evidence of these abuses have systemically neglected at the LAPD. I ask you, how many more children must suffer due to this gross failure of mandated reporters, not only within religious organization, but also, as we know now from what has been revealed today, right within the LAPD itself? Why are we mandated reporters not helping kids?
Thank you.
Next, we have Audit LA.
Good morning, Commission, Chief, Miss you. This is my friend. I call him friend. I'm proud to call him friend. His name is Serge. He grew up in Scientology, and he telling me his story is the reason him, Laura too, but him. He's the reason I fight hard. This is why I come to every police commission meeting, almost every meeting there is. Okay, I come because of him. He has been crying for help and justice, and he's just one of hundreds who have been crying for help, for justice, and it's been falling on deaf ears. So I've been here screaming at the top of my lungs, not literally, but to get him and the others heard. There has to be something done. That's why I'm begging you to remove Janet Wieland and any Scientologist from CPAB, because the people who are doing this, who are protecting what happened to them, are advising LAPD on your CPAB, sir. And I believe that you are a reasonable man. You promised you'd listen, and I believe that. I'm trusting you in that. They have to be held accountable. We have all been attacked and fair gamed as well for speaking up. But it's to the point, whatever they want to plan to do to me, they can do to me. But I will never not help my friend Serge, because he's my friend at this point. And Jenna, her uncle runs. He's like the head of Scientology. And the bravery it takes for her to come here and tell her story to your face, I'm in tears. I don't know her as well, but I thank you for what you said. And thank you for coming forward, because her doing that, she could have chosen to protect family name, whatever, over, the children, but she hasn't. And I salute her for that. But this is my friend, Serge. He's my friend. I love this guy. I love, his husband, Michael. These are my friends. These are the people I will be in the trenches with. I want you to remember his face. He's why I'm here. He represents every child that has ever been abused and every child that is still being abused, just by their mere practices of auditing. If you only understood, I know right now he's not able to really tell you. But sir, Chief, I am begging you to, when he is able to please hear him out as to what auditing means. Because it's not like us with the police department, where you audit and you see no, it's very different, and it's intrinsically abusive. And there's already laws to protect these children on the books. They just, like Michael was saying, they just need to be engaged and enforced. But I am begging you, do not forget my friend Serge and Jenna and everyone who is standing up for these kids. Please, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have William Good.
Chief, I'm sorry. Can we get the letters? Okay. Sorry, Becky.
Good morning. So you guys are talking about improper remarks, right? I'm Black Fool that she was talking about. That officer referred to me as a Black Fool. I've sent 14 emails to this guy right here asking if that's appropriate, and if somebody does it to another black man again, will that be considered misconduct? I have not heard from him yet. All of these people have been CC'd on those emails. So when you guys pretend like you actually care, you've been on those emails. Now you talk about improper remarks. I know my friend back here was at a community day event when one of your senior lead officers, the liaison to community, called him a murderer and then said he beats his wife. Lies. This cop lied on a community member, called him a murderer, said he beats his wife. That could get somebody hurt. that could get somebody killed. I confronted this guy at the parade the other day. I walked with him for about a half a mile, maybe a mile. And I confronted him. I said, is that appropriate? Because you want to know why? He sent me a reply letter back that said that it was non-disciplinary. Calling him a murderer, lying on him, is non-disciplinary. Calling him a wife beater is non-disciplinary. They're allowed to just lie like that, Shields? They're allowed to lie like that, Southers? And so when I asked him about it to his face, the only thing he could say is, good morning. Good morning. And when I asked him about being called a black fool, what did he say? Good morning. Good morning. So you guys talk about accountability, talk to that guy right there, because he's doing nothing. And that's why he was put on here, to do nothing. Karen Bass is running for re-election, and she does not want the police union being pissed off at her. So he has come in, I've talked to the captain in Hollywood Division, and he has said specifically at a CPAB meeting, I have it on recording, that the disciplinary process is too hard on the cops. That it's unfair for the cops. That's what you said. I've had commanders come and tell me that. So when you hear that this man or that officers, that senior lead officers, are calling somebody a murderer and calling somebody a wife beater and they do nothing about it, that's on you guys. That's on you guys. I've been talking about Scientology a little bit, right? And one time you guys actually investigated their crimes is when they investigated the Danny Masterson case. You had some detectives go and investigate. And what did the Church of Scientology do? Harass the shit out of the detectives. Broke their windows. And what did you guys do? What did you do? Did nothing. You guys do nothing. I'm going to say right now, you guys have a recruiting problem. The recruiting problem is your fault. It's the reflection that you guys are showing to the community, the disrespect you've shown the community, that's going to come back and haunt you. Enjoy your day.
Thank you.
Next, we have Twyla.
Good morning, Chief. So several points, I take some notes. Number one, I heard you mentioned about the recruitment scandal. This specific incident was, caught on social media, but I was wondering how many scandals are there were not published on the social media, so it will never get to your attention. Number two, I heard the President Southers ask about the bicycle gang and then attack on the whatever person, and then Commissioner President said it's a problem. It's a problem for 2 and 3 years. I disagree with our president because 2 years ago, President said it's a problem. 1 year ago, President said it's a problem. This year is a problem. Next year, he will continue to say it's a problem. Because if I believe something is a problem that is hurt public safety, the police commissioner will solve that problem already. If we have a sheriff, Texas-style sheriff, if we have a Texas-style police chief, I'm pretty sure those bike gangs will never come out again, will never attack again. They will learn the consequence of the law. But because of this is LA, and then again, I made the same assumption many times in the meeting. Number one, they will never get caught. Number two, when the event they got caught, they will be released very soon. What's that happen? It will encourage more looting, rioting, violent, whatever on the street. Number three, Chief, you talk about burglary. The other day, I watched the Texas Sheriff Wells. There's a press conference in the Texas. The reporter provoked him a question. He said, one of your residents just shot and then killed a burglar in the residence. Do you have any comments about that? Sheriff Wells said, well, I don't have much comments about that. When you are entering someone's house illegally, you should expect to get killed. You should expect to get shot. So that is the style of self-defense of the Texas Sheriff Wells in Manatee County, Florida. But in the city of LA, the reason why is everybody knows we are a coward. No, I mean not we. I'm just saying me. I am a coward. I don't know how to fight. In the city of LA, everybody knows they can come to my apartment because we don't have a gun. Everybody can loot my house, burglar my house knowing that I'm afraid to shoot. So what's that happen? Those burglary will continue to occur more often, more often, and more often. And then President Southers said this is a problem. Wait, 1 year ago, next year, he will say the same thing. 2 years later, 3 years later, until the moment he retire, he will continue to say it's a problem.
Next, we have DOA.
Well, some people want to 86 the police. You know, they say that Scientology puts a lot of money into Northeast Division, Hollywood Division. Even ex-Scientology foundations, they put thousands of dollars into it. Last time I came here 2 weeks ago, I made a complaint about Officer Gomez at Northeast Division and how I was being charged with the swattings. I filed a complaint. They chased me down and I did a complaint. Guess what? 2 hours fucking later, guess what happened 2 hours later? I was in fucking handcuffs. See that mark right there? Some motherfuckers laughed about it. Some bitch motherfuckers laughed about that. They think that that's funny. Because I'm standing up for the kids of Scientology, the ex-Scientologist community, the Scientologists, they're all fucking perverted. There's all sorts of motherfuckers who just want to put their fucking penis everywhere. All everywhere. That's what Scientology does. It breeds that type of shit. And you guys are all accountable to that. I thanked you last time because I thought I only had one misdemeanor, but you're charging me 16 misdemeanors for standing up for the rape victims of Danny Masterson. 16 different misdemeanors for using a bullhorn. Yeah, I was going to bullhorn all sorts of motherfuckers because people think it's okay to just bullhorn. They think that bullhorning makes you all, that it's not okay to bullhorn. I have a right to bullhorn. Inciting violence. Some people think that inciting violence at protests is bad. I would agree with that. Definitely agree with that. Some people want to yell. I don't need to yell. Yeah. Some people don't want to stand up for the children. I went to get my property back. It's been over a year. They told me numerous times I could get my phones back after a year. Still didn't get my property back. No more Diddy shit. No more fucking Diddy shit, all right? Who's getting paid by Scientology? 86, the police, and the grand old party.
Next, we have Jonathan Foster.
Hello, Jonathan Foster. Hello, Chief. Good morning, Chief. Good morning, Mr. President, Dr. Southers, Madam Vice President, Commissioner Kalanche, Commissioner Fabian, Commissioner Sanchez-Gordon, Inspector General, you, Executive Director Sibley, City Attorney, Carlos de la Guerra, if I said it wrong, I'll get it right next time. Executive Assistant Munoz and Executive Assistant Silva. I'm Jonathan Foster. And I've learned that if you come in with a hammer, all you do is hurt people. I thought I'd say good morning. But I do support the police 100%. I think it does 98% excellent service. It's got 2% that's gross, and this gross stuff covers the 40% of a sexual assault, 40% of DUI, and of course the murder. But it's the murder, it's passed by past commissions approved this murder, and now you have approved murder. And this, it was on a 4-1 decision. This is why I said that the commission needs to be 23 commissioners, like a grand jury judge. Change that, please. Supporting means prosecuting badge tarnishers. That's what support means. I wanted to say something too in support. I know, how come so many people let other people commit crime and then an officer has to basically execute somebody, has to feel bad about it? How come we aren't protecting the police officers from that? Yeah, that's one of the things I came down here. All right, let's go over this one.
And members of the public, today is Tuesday, January 28, 2024, and January 28, 2024. And members of the public, today is Tuesday, January 9th, 2023. 2024. My apologies.
Yep. You don't know what year it is. You've done this twice. And so when we have police officers, they're in repetitious mode. Somebody dies, okay? And I was being led in the Holy Ghost. That's why I found this. It shined a light for me. You see, and what happens when police are stuck in repetitious behavior, it becomes criminal law breaking. And then someone dies. This is called a oops, out of policy shooting, and it becomes a oopa, out of policy murder or homicide. Okay? And Rasha, you got money signs in your eyes. You were going to be a nurse, but you wanted to be a lawyer because it makes more money. And I got so much more to go over in 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Next, we have Gabriel.
Good morning. My name is Gabriel Cabrera, and I'm a former LAPD police officer that served the city of LA for almost 15 years. This is the third time I speak in front of the police commission pertaining to my termination from the LAPD. The first topic I want to make crystal clear is that my statement and demonstration today is in no way perceived as anti-police. I was a police officer for 15 years, and I'm proud of that. Without the police, we have no law and order, no cities. I'm simply addressing a specific malfeasance that was committed against me during my termination from the LAPD. Second, last year, the police commission, you guys, initiated a complaint on my behalf with the Office of the Inspector General, and for that I sincerely say thank you. Even though it's been over a year that this complaint was initiated, I have yet to be questioned or interviewed. Why is it taking so long? Commissioners, it's very simple. Before I appeared at my police trial board, then LAPD Chief Beck advised my police jury in writing to find me guilty of the complaint filed against me and terminate me before I appeared at my trial. This is an official LAPD document from the Office of the Chief proposing my termination. Since this was proposed before I appeared at my police trial, this violated my constitutional right of due process, which is covered under the 5th and 14th Amendments of the Constitution. Commissioners, as you know, the police, the LAPD, or the chief of police are not above the Constitution. No city edict, order, or proposal supersedes the U.S. Constitution. You, the police commission, as an independent entity, can circumvent this malfeasance and correct it by granting me justice and reinstating me as a police officer. A few years ago, the police commission reinstated another former LAPD police officer, Robert William Stewart, nearly 70 years after his death. If you did it for him, you can do it for me. Before I appeared at my police trial, I was informed by my union-appointed attorney at the time, Larry Hanna, that I would be terminated, but not because of the complaint, but because of my on-the-job injury disability. And that's exactly what happened. It's common knowledge within the LAPD and other departments that the LAPD has had an unofficial policy of jettisoning, getting rid of police officers that are hurt in the line of duty since the 1950s. And I am living proof that this unofficial policy still exists. So, after contracting the deadly disease meningitis from a man I detained while working patrol, I almost died. I survived with cognitive impairment. I was illegally terminated, and I received no pension or benefits from working patrol for almost 15 years. Does that seem fair? I am currently reaching out to the public via social media to contact you, the police commission, to do the right thing and grant me justice. I appeal to you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Scott. Scott. Okay, we'll move on. Next, we have Megan. Megan. Jason Reedy.
All right, so today I'll start with the pinkest of pigs, Jim McDonald's February message to the LAPD, rank and file. In it, Jim says, each of you performs an essential role in protecting our communities from the reach of terror. But you are the terror you wax poetic about. The LAPD is an occupying army in the colony known as Los Angeles, and there isn't a group in Los Angeles that is responsible for more harm than the LAPD. Now, given that there will be a presentation on Black History Month today, during which we'll hear the LAPD quote-unquote celebrate the stories of black people, let us remember the black men whose stories were cut short by your pigs. In 1962, the LAPD murdered Ronald Stokes for being a Muslim. Leonard Deadweiler was murdered in 1966 by the LAPD when he was driving his wife, who was in labor, to the hospital. William Leonard was babysitting for a family in 1968 when the LAPD murdered him. Black Panther Party members Steve Bartholomew, Robert Lawrence, and Thomas Lewis were murdered by the LAPD on August 5, 1968. Jerry Lee Arney, a Vietnam veteran and Purple Heart recipient, was murdered by the LAPD in front of his family on June 20, 1970. Your pigs preyed on Stephen Washington, a black autistic man who was murdered in 2010 for walking on the sidewalk. Years later, in 2014, Ezell Ford was executed for the same thing. Grishario Mack, murdered by the LAPD in 2018 at the Crenshaw Mall, the same mall you were walking by when we confronted you. Takar Smith was murdered by LAPD in 2023 for being in mental crisis. These are only a few of the lives this department has stolen. Black revolutionaries, black fathers, black caregivers, black Muslims, and the list goes on. And that type of black history is what this department will continue to be known for. Now, I took a look at the department's January disciplinary penalties, and you doled out a slap on the wrist, aka an admonishment, for a pig who called a complainant a liar and told them to shut up. But as William outlined earlier, when Senior Lead Officer Edward Kellogg implied I was a murderer and that I beat my partner, LAPD determined that those remarks weren't improper and didn't rise to the level of misconduct. When Senior Lead Officer Elizabeth Southern said I was high on drugs and threatened to call DCFS on my family because I said, "Fuck you, pigs," the LAPD determined her remarks weren't discourteous and there was no misconduct. And I can't wait to see the department's findings on Denise Sanchez, Detective Denise Sanchez, should I note, who rear-ended my partner, the mother of this beautiful child, last June. Am I going to have to wait 4 months for that adjudication letter, or will you be sending that on time, Jim? Now, I fully recognize that these investigations are hogwash. They are tools used by the department and this commission to provide cover for the harassment, targeting, and harm brought onto my family. Everyone knows that this is happening, and there's decades of history showing that this isn't abnormal. It's part of the standard operating procedure. Now, I bring up these findings to show that the community, that pigs will lie in any circumstance, and what was happening 50 years ago is still happening today. Now, 3C, the funding of your license plate recognition equipment. In December, I was on the west side to celebrate a comrade's marriage, and lo and behold, after leaving the event, LAPD was posted up standing outside of their vehicle, right where we parked, surveilling me and my family. They even meme-mugged us as we changed my baby's diaper. And then when we got in our car to drive away, they pulled off dramatically like they were in a TV show. I mention this, which I know is a normal occurrence, because that's what ALPRs do. They surveil activists and organizers and any person that the state deems as a threat to their so-called legitimacy, their control, and status quo. Fuck that, and fuck the LAPD.
Thank you.
Next, we have Grace.
We gather here not to engage in the theater of police accountability, but to name the violence that this commission was built to uphold. Every week, you sit here and feign oversight while rubber stamping LAPD's latest expansion of surveillance, its latest maneuver to extract more public funds, its latest attempt to tighten the state's grip on our lives. The so-called Sanctuary City Ordinance is a perfect example of LA's commitment to illusion over substance. Section 19.192, cited in the department report, claims to prohibit city employees from sharing citizenship or immigration status information with ICE or DHS. Yet it then cites a federal law, 8 United States Code Section 1373, that explicitly prevents local governments from restricting such communication. LAPD itself admits in its own FAQ that it is not, quote, not prohibited or restricted, end quote, from sending immigration status data to ICE and DHS. The ordinance literally cancels itself out. Additionally, LAPD collects and centralizes data, biometric scans, gang databases, school incident reports, social media monitoring at physical sites called fusion centers, feeding an interconnected system of repression that makes it seamless for ICE and DHS to target our people. The designation of LA as a sanctuary city is not a commitment to ending state violence. It is a strategic maneuver to maintain control. The city of LA claims to stand against the violence of ICE, yet it continues to facilitate mass deportations through its policing infrastructure. It is not a sanctuary, it is a smokescreen, and behind that smokescreen, LAPD continues to serve as a pipeline to deportation. And while LAPD justifies its surveillance expansion by invoking fear of crime, fear of the racialized other, it also expects the public to fund its PR stunts. How does a luxury relay race for police chiefs contribute to public safety? LAPD cries about budget constraints, yet there's always money for surveillance, always money for self-indulgence, always money to cement itself as an unaccountable force with unchecked power. But we know that is exactly what it was designed to do. So we refuse to entertain the lie that any of this is about protection. Protection for whom? Not for the Black, brown, and immigrant communities who remain under the boot of LAPD violence. Not for the working class whose resources are drained to fund the ever-expanding police state. Not for the people LAPD targets, displaces, and disappears under the guise of law and order. The real function of this commission is not to hold LAPD accountable, but to legitimize its violence. And we are not here to appeal to your conscience. We are here to expose what you already know, what you work so hard to obscure. The LAPD is not here to serve or protect. It is here to control, to surveil, to punish, and to banish. And no ordinance, no budget line, no bureaucratic maneuver will ever change that.
Next, we have Quinn.
Yeah, I'd like to add on to Jason's point earlier about the fact that you're going to do a Black History Month presentation later on, and just remind you that no matter how many presentations you give or how expensive the print job was for your get up outside, the police department and LAPD will always be what it began as, a slave patrol designed to surveil, murder, and control Black communities. This is continuing with your surveillance, control, and murder of Black and brown communities as you continue to particularly do so in actively aiding ICE and all federal law and immigration enforcement agencies. You're having a presentation later today on your immigration enforcement policy and your sanctuary city policy, one that misleads the public and undermines the very values it claims to protect. Let's not be fooled by the posturing and hollow promises of those who say that sanctuary cities stand as a bastion for immigrant communities. You talked about doing know your rights and other bullshit, but time and again, we've already debunked and shown how the police have never been here to serve nor to protect. The disturbing reality of sanctuary cities is that all they have done, particularly in Los Angeles, is reify the infrastructure of surveillance and support the existence of the information sharing environment between law enforcement, ICE, and DHS. Ultimately, this reform does nothing but uphold the power and legitimacy of all law enforcement, including immigration enforcement agencies such as ICE, HSI, and DHS. The recent LA ordinance spoken about later on purportedly limits LAPD's ability to support immigration enforcement officers, including limiting information sharing or using city resources to aid ICE. In reality, 8 U.S.C. 1373A is a federal statute that prohibits local and state government agencies from limiting communication with DHS, functionally making it impossible to LAPD to withhold information regarding information on immigration or citizenship status of individuals. Under this ordinance, LAPD remains free to share information with ICE and with the DHS. In fact, LAPD is under no prohibition from sharing information in other elements as well, such as criminal records or fingerprint sharing. Whether it's through sophisticated surveillance tools funded by millions of taxpayer dollars, tools like Palantir, Vigilant Solutions, and LexisNexis, or through routine practices like fingerprinting and your newly unveiled automatic license plate readers, LAPD continues to provide ICE with crucial information that directly aids in the deportation of individuals, ultimately making any claim from your presentation today prematurely moot. Your ALPRs in particular, we've already talked about. The technology LAPD uses has language that explicitly states that ALPRs are used by LAPD to search for, hunt, and track and surveil those without documentation status, or those it deems seditious, or those it deems criminal. Moreover, the LAPD's involvement in multi-agency task forces, such as the Organized Retail Crime Task Force or the Joint Terrorism Task Force, are always used by ICE, LAPD, and other federal agencies through fusion centers in order to hunt, surveil, and track Black and brown communities, as you always have done.
Next, we have Hamid Khan.
So as some of the other folks from Stop LAPD Spying Coalition have stated, I think the question really comes down to, for Lou Calanche and Fabian Garcia, that what about the suspicious activity reporting program? What about iWatch? And the reason I bring this up is that they can talk about all the guardrails, they can talk about that we're not going to share information. Those programs are dependent on information sharing. That's the basic essence of that program. That when a secret file is opened, a suspicious activity reporting file is opened. It's been going on since 2007. And then when you have See Something, Say Something, the iWatch program since 2009, it is automatically, it's vetted by the Major Crimes Division, but then it's sent to the Fusion Center. That is the requirement of the program. So if this is the case, then what is the program there for? What is it there for? Because it is not about that we're not picking up the phone, we're not sending data over the computer. The program solely exists because of information sharing. What happens to the fingerprints when somebody is pulled in? Where do the fingerprints go? The fingerprints are immediately transmitted to the federal government, to the FBI, and information is floated all around. What about flock safety license plate readers, which have on their own portal that people can have information on immigration violators? So what you're doing is this whole bullshit about this, and I know LAPD is going to be even presenting that document today, there are such inherent contradiction, both in practice and even what is stated, the intent it is as well. So unless we finish the tools, the very source of those harm, then unless we shut down suspicious activity reporting program, unless we shut down the iWatch See Something, Say Something program, this is just there. You can claim all the guardrails, you can claim all the that we're not going to share information, all sanctuary city or not. That is the nature of the program. So this is where you have to stop. And what about all of these databases that are both sharing with ICE and DHS, and we've been naming them out, Palantir, Peregrine, LexisNexis, RM Record Management System, Evidence.com, Axon Fleet, DICVSs, Motorola license plate readers, the real-time crime centers, Axon body-worn video cameras, CCTVs and wireless camera networks, Genetec software, LifeScan and Evolution, Celebrite, and more contracts and grants. These are all systems in place in the LAPD that are directly connected with information sharing to ICE, to DHS, to the whole federal government. And the Fusion Center. John McMahon, who's your deputy chief, he has lied several times. He lied to us when we confronted them at the Central Station about Operation Laser and the Chronic Friender program. And they had their own internal fusion center, unless it was exposed. Then in 2022, he lied again about, that license plate readers not sharing programs with DHS and all of that. So you have to take action, or you can just sit there.
Next, we have Adam.
Good morning. I was just looking at a press release from January 16th, 2025, which was this year, from the DOJ and the LA County, and it says federal and local law enforcement officials formed task force to combat crimes related to Los Angeles area wildfires. And from the release, it says the Joint Regional Fire Crimes Task Force includes representatives of the U.S. Attorney's Office, the FBI, the ATF, Homeland Security Investigations, the LA County District Attorney's Office, LA City Attorney's Office, the LAPD, and the LA Sheriff's Department. So this task force was started a month after LA City Council passed their so-called sanctuary ordinance that purports to stop city departments from sharing info, including with federal entities like ICE. Anyway, one of those entities listed on this newly formed task force a month after the sanctuary ordinance passed is Homeland Security Investigations. When you go to the website to check out Homeland and Security Investigations, you'll see that, of course, this is housed within ICE. So aside from the fact the LAPD technology like ALPRs feed data directly to the federal government that flies directly in the face of this veneer of safety that is LA's so-called sanctuary ordinance, aside from the fact that fingerprints of people arrested by LAPD are fed to the federal government, aside from the fact that programs like suspicious activity reporting that were born in a post-9/11 context that not only expanded the reach of the federal government to vulnerabilized and disparate criminalized communities, but created ICE, created the Department of Homeland Security. So as politicians pat themselves on the back around passing a sanctuary ordinance, as the LAPD sits here today with the feigned oversight of this body, the LAPD still not only feeds personal data of immigrant communities to ICE, but continue to grasp at resources and further entrench into communities that in this case are recovering from devastating wildfires that weren't caused by immigrants, weren't caused by the boogeyman of national security threats, but were caused by the environmental degradation and climate change, by failing privatized infrastructure and private real estate, which I guess makes sense as these are the things that LAPD exists to defend. This Saturday, March 1st, marks 10 years since I brought my child home from the hospital. Get a lot of memories popping up on my photos. It also, to Grace's point about the falsehood of this oversight body, marks the murder of Cameroonian immigrant Charlie Africa Kunang at 6th and San Pedro in Skid Row. This black houseless man, an immigrant, was murdered in his tent, was criminalized in death by this department, while his murderer, Officer Frank Martinez, was promoted into LAPD's senior lead officer program, where he still works downtown in Skid Row, targeting and criminalizing people like Charlie, while you all sit here giving more resources and legitimacy to an institution born in slave catching.
Thank you. That will be the end of the public comment period. We now go on to agenda item number 3, consent agenda items. We have items 3A through M today. I'm going to hold 3C, which is the department's report related to West LA Division, until we have the presentation under regular agenda items on the automated license plate recognition system. So with that, I would ask, are there any comments or questions on A through M, excepting C? Vice President Shields?
No, thank you.
None? Okay. Commissioner Garcia?
No, thank you.
Commissioner Calanche?
No questions. Thanks for holding that. I was going to request that as well.
Okay. Commissioner Sanchez-Gordon?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Make a motion that we adopt the recommendation for board action on items 3A through M, excepting C. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. We will now move on to agenda item for number 4. Okay. All right, we have agenda item number 4A. I have Commander Espinosa and Captain Espinosa.
Yes.
Ironically, yes.
Okay.
Yes, not related unless there's
I
something
know.
we don't know about.
All right, Commander, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Inspector General, Chief, Executive Director, President Southers, Commissioners, and City Attorney Carlos de la Guerra. We are here this morning to conduct a presentation on the Automated License Plate Recognition System, otherwise known as ALPR. I am Giselle Espinoza, and I'm assigned to the Office of Operations as the Homelessness Coordinator. My partner here, who's going to do the majority of the presentation, is Captain Anthony Espinoza. He's the Commanding Officer of Innovation Management Division.
Thank you for the introduction.
So I'll start off with how LAPD uses our ALPR system. So the key part about this is it's in the name, automated. And what it allows our officers to do is when they're working in patrol inside a black and white police car, rather than having their face buried inside a MDC, they're able to have situational awareness and keep their head up. An officer that would be in L car would also be driving, having to look down at MDC. That's technically unsafe. So what the ALPR program allows us to do is run license plates that are on the street and provide that data back to the officer. And the way that that goes about is the camera reads the plate, goes to a database. Those images or license plates, characteristics are run through the database, and it's paired with a vehicle that's wanted, stolen, missing person, something of that nature, but those hits come back to the officer. So that makes us more efficient in patrol. When it comes to broadening investigative networks, that comes down to the detectives would traditionally have bolos or wanted flyers that they would produce, go to roll call, advise the officers. Through this investigative network, they can put in a license plate into that system that again is read by the license plate reader and notifies the officer that a vehicle is wanted or on one of those hit lists.
Captain, the only thing I'm going to do is refer to a couple of acronyms. I want to make sure everyone understands what you're talking about. MDC.
My apologies. The mobile digital computer.
Okay, and BOLO.
BOLO is
Be on the lookout.
Okay, thank you.
Or a wanted flyer. So yes, my apologies. So these systems, through the automation, makes our officers more efficient, more effective. And then for detectives, again, traditionally when a crime happens and they have a vehicle of interest, what ends up happening is it's siloed at that division or within that police department. Through agreements that the department sends out or receives from other agencies, those agreements allow us to share ALPR data with specific departments. And today we only have 5 of those agreements signed, and that limits our ability to data share.
Okay, so I will speak to how the locations for the fixed ALPRs are selected. Basically, the Office of Operations sends a project type of correspondence to each of the geographic bureaus instructing them to have their subordinate commands identify a location where the ALPR can be placed. Those area commands will in turn, and not in any particular order, but they will analyze crime data patterns and trends. It is all data driven. They will take input from the community at CPABs, Community Police Advisory Board settings, neighborhood council meetings, council districts. They work very closely with the council districts. Council districts, all 15 are very involved in these efforts, and we have a long history of that with them. They also collaborate with the detectives, senior lead officers, and the basic car area leads in all the divisions. So it's not a random, capricious installment of these fixed ALPRs. It is very informed. It is data informed. Our ComStat division, after the area commands submit their plan or proposal for the installment of that ALPR and their recommended reasons or rationale for it, we go ahead at our level reconcile their crime statistics or whatever they're proposing for why they need those ALPRs in those areas. We reconcile that with ComStat division, who runs a different set of numbers. We compare that to what they're providing, and it is a largely informed effort by everyone involved. It is not random. It is not loosey-goosey. It is not capricious. It's something that's very thoughtful, and there is a significant amount of our local partners' input, as well as input from the community, more importantly. Some of the things that are considered also is the traffic flow in each of those divisions that is also overlapped with the crime trends or crime patterns or any hotspots that may be occurring in those divisions. So it is a multifaceted approach to making sure that we are being very effective and efficient with our funding and with what we want those ALPRs to accomplish in those areas. So one example that I will give you is I know in the Harbor Division, there's a limited way of getting in and out through the freeway. And so there's one way in and one way out on the 110 freeway. So I know in the past there has been, some assessments of ALPRs around the area of the freeway because that's where a lot of the stolen vehicles were traversing through. I know when I was there, that was a big issue. The Port of Los Angeles also has an ALPR camera system that is placed throughout San Pedro and the areas of that Harbor Division covers. So we collaborate with them as well to multiply our ability to provide for public safety and a more collective effort.
So as far as ALPR devices that the Innovation Management Division manages and the department uses, on the left-hand side, we have the mobile camera systems. Those are placed on all of our police vehicles that have an in-car computer. We also have trailers that are assigned to the bureaus. Area captains can deploy those trailers whenever they see fit based on crime trends. And then on the right, we have hardwired ALPR cameras as well as solar ALPR cameras that are affixed to poles throughout the city. When it comes to broadcasting ALPR, that's a question that comes up periodically. Today, we do not have that protocol built out, but how those alerts come through is through, again, the mobile digital computer that is in just about every black and white police vehicle. The department also has smartphone applications, so any officer that has a cell phone can log into the system and get ALPR reads, and their phones can also be used as an ALPR camera. If someone's working in an office environment, they can log into the web browser and also access the ALPR systems to do searches or receive those hits. One question that we've come across is communications division. Could they potentially broadcast ALPR hits? The answer is yes, but going around the country, talking with different subject matter experts, the call volume that we have within LAPD would make this very difficult for our dispatchers. Some departments we go to may only have 5 calls for service. That means there's a lot of available time. And what that dispatcher would have to do is have tabs on their computer and verify every time they receive a hit. Verify if that's an accurate plate, and then broadcast that over the air to the officers that are traversing the city. So for example, we have about 301,000 ALPR hits in 2024, which comes out to about 25,000 hits per month. Communications division, as far as incoming calls, has over 5 million. That's a lot of calls for service, which comes out to 440,000 per month. So that would be an extreme burden on them. So through our research on real-time crime centers, we've discovered that that's the most appropriate place for those notifications to occur. It's slower paced than what dispatch would be. That would give them the opportunity to have those tabs open, verify those plates to make sure that it's the right plate on that hit, and then do notifications to our officers like we do today. So for example, the hit protocol could be for a lost or stolen vehicle, the real-time crime center operator could broadcast that information as an information-only broadcast, or contact Department of Transportation or a report writing car to go out there and recover that vehicle. If it's a more serious type of hit, something along the lines of a violent felony, human trafficking, or missing persons, you could broadcast that if there's cameras in that area and you can watch those. You could provide information updates to those officers in the field. And again, it would increase the way that our protocols based on if there's officers in the area, if we needed a supervisor of the airship, things like that.
Okay, in terms of the equitable deployment of technology, first I'd like to share just a few numbers on how many we have per bureau. So in South Bureau, we have a total of 14 ALPRs currently. West Bureau has 16, Central Bureau has 15, and Valley Bureau has 115. The reason they have 115 is because Council District 12 was, with a lot of input from the community, went ahead and coordinated and funded for the additional 100. So Devonshire Division has 79. Terms of equitability, we make sure that every community's needs are met in depending on their characteristics. Every division has communities that are very diverse, very different. Their needs are obviously very different. But that said, every patrol officer assigned to operations has a smartphone with an ALPR app, and that smartphone is equipped to be able to receive some of these alerts. So the technology is distributed department-wide. There are just some variables that we contend with other council districts that are a little more responsive to what the community is asking for or need, or based on the funding may or may not be available. Right now, West LA, in West Bureau, as I mentioned, there is 16 fixed ALPRs right now. But because of the Palisades matter, right now they have 50 temporary ones that were provided with a donation by a community member due to the looting and due to the significant number of burglaries in the area. So those are going to be there for 6 months. So we have a total of 160 LPRs right now. And we believe that, that number can change depending on the needs of the community and in working in collaboration with the council districts and other community members and our local government partners.
And then lastly, one of the questions was, what is our update for LAPD Real Time? And for those that don't know, LAPD Real Time is the name for LAPD's Real Time Crime Center program. Happy to announce that the upgrades to Central Division, their space, is just about completed. It should be finished this month. We will be testing in March the technology, integrating some cameras that into our network, which were already existing, but we're just going to transition those images downstairs. Central Division's going to assign some officers to that room, which they will go through about a week's worth of training to understand what a real-time crime center can offer patrol officers. We've also created a real-time crime center committee, and that committee is going to be broken down into subcommittees to talk about training, funding, expanding infrastructure, and we're working with the Mayor's Office of Public Safety to look at sharing technologies within the city to be more cost-effective. That's all that I have.
I just want to add one more thing that I forgot to mention, is each bureau has at minimum one ALPR trailer. So we have approximately 7, and given repair and availability, each bureau has access to at least one that they can use to deploy in the community as is supported by the subordinate commands and their input from the folks that are working on their crime strategies or community concerns. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. So I have a number of questions, and out of respect for my fellow commissioners, I'm going to only ask one. I'll make it but it's going to be a 3-part question. I want to speak to equitable deployment. As you mentioned, you gave us the ALPR count for all 4 bureaus, and Valley Bureau has at least 7 times as many as any other bureau.
Correct.
So my question is, what's the citywide strategy for ALPR technology? Is this something that's being influenced by donors? And if so, how do we ensure the consistency of police services to communities across the city?
Okay, I understand what you're getting at, sir. This particular one, I think, had a lot to do with the retail crime thefts that were occurring and the significant number of burglaries in that area that prompted the community to, from my knowledge, to collaborate with the council district. And there was a lot of pressure to bring that to resolution, or to at least, have technology to assist in the investigative efforts. Is there anything else that from the IT side that
No,
that you know of
you
from
answered it.
the background? We are very aware that in Devonshire Division, there is that significant number of ALPRs, but what we also do is, if there is a need in another community and maybe they don't have access to the same resources that this council district does, that's where we will come in and try to close a gap as much as we can. And like we said, with the ALPR trailers, if there is a need for more than one ALPR trailer in let's say South Bureau, there's no reason, or Central Bureau, there's no reason why we can't deploy those to those bureaus and maybe not have one in Valley Bureau for a certain amount of time. So it's not a constant, it's not a perfect science. We continue to look at the crime patterns and what the needs are. And we are very aware, it's not lost on us, that there is some additional support in Devonshire Division for those crimes that were occurring, and that's how the community chose to respond. That's how the council member chose to respond, and we try to close the gap with the other council members, with other community members, and we do have those conversations about why that's occurring and how we can be better and more strategic to be able to overcome that.
And as additional city fundings become available, we can offset the number of cameras that we deploy in the future to those areas that may not have as many cameras as another division, bureau, or council district.
Okay, I'm going to come back to that because perhaps other commissioners have questions that'll fill in the gap, but I do want to come back to that because I
Yes,
want to
sir.
be sure that as we are collecting community and council input on locations, I want to understand what they're being told when the community decides or has determined they're necessary but doesn't have the resources for it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
if I could just, for context too, as far as the equity for distribution, there's 1,500 patrol cars also with ALPR that are distributed by workload throughout the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Vice President Shields.
Sure, I had a couple of questions, and thank you for the presentation and the input. It's always helpful, and I'm glad to hear that we're not adding additional workloads on the communications division. I think that would be difficult given the wait times already with calls and everything else. So I'm glad you're thinking about other alternatives. One question I had is just in terms of so the real-time crime center. So any kind of stationary ALPRs right now, it's not being dispatched out, right? Is it just used as an investigatory tool after the fact?
Yes, but also with those hot lists, if a officer is logged into the system, whether it's a desktop, the phone, or the MDC, they will get an alert as that vehicle that is on that hot list traverses the city. So on the MDC, it'll come up. They will look around, try to locate that vehicle on their own. It can also show it on a map, on the phone, on the MDC, or on the computer. So they can also go look for that vehicle as well. So no verbal, but visually through the devices.
Okay. And how is it, Chief, one thing I will want to make sure we're tracking is if this is going to lead to more pursuits, because that's going to be something that we don't want to encourage and make sure that that's being controlled. In terms of how is it that the calls are going to be prioritized? Or I worry because a lot of times there's, it already takes officers a while to get to a call or other things if they're just logged on to the thing and trying to chase the next hit, if you will. Is there going to be direction as to in what order they're supposed to be responding to concerns?
So calls for service would be the priority, making sure that the customer's needs are dealt with. And then as those hits come up, if there's available time, that's what they will focus on. As far as pursuits, I understand exactly what you're referring to. Each time that we've put up cameras in a division, we've talked with the area captains, notifying them that that is a trend that happens with other law enforcement agencies. And at that time, it's time to revisit our roll call training when it comes to pursuits. With additional technologies like Respond for in-car videos, that is another tool that we can use to exercise risk management in stopping pursuits before they go too far. So yes, we do talk with the areas, they talk with their roll calls, and then update the officers that this could be a trend, but let's do our due diligence and use good risk management.
That's great to hear that you're proactively thinking about all these issues and addressing them. My last question, out of respect for my other commissioners, just in terms of how the data is being used in terms of who has access to it. So if it's, ALPRs that the department has purchased or gotten through donations, is it through contractually that only the LAPD has access to it? Can other departments or federal agencies tap into it? How is that handled?
So with the department's ALPR program, it's stored in a Federal Bureau of Investigation CJIS compliant cloud. The only folks that have access to it are LAPD employees who've gone through either 2 levels of training. There's a data administrator, which is assigned to me in Innovation Management Division. They go through extensive training on how to do audits, inspections, and making sure the access is allowed or reduced based on standards set in our policy. Then there's the data user. The data user, if they want to be able to do a search, also has to go through training, and they have to be active within the system for a year. If that system is inactive, they lose their ability to access that information. They have to go through additional training. So there is training in place that the officer has to go through to be able to do a search. Now, if it's just getting the alerts on an MDC or on a device, it's on-the-job training, but they're actually not searching for license plates, dates, times, or location. They're just receiving an alert like you'd receive one on your phone. But there are guidelines, there's governance in place to ensure that only LAPD people with training get that access. Now, outside agencies, we do have 5 agencies that have access to our data, but that's through an agreement that is signed by the chief of police. And that's the one time when data can be shared.
Can you tell us who the 5 agencies are?
Yes, one second. I'll have to get back to you. I know I have it. I just don't have it readily available.
Are there federal agencies as well, or just local?
These are local agencies.
No federal?
No federal.
So 5 local agencies have access.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner, any more? Okay. Commissioner Kalanche?
I have them somewhere.
That was the basis of my question. So the 5 local agencies are 5 local police departments?
Yes.
Okay. And then,
Yes.
yes.
But they are local. It's not at the federal level.
At any point at any point could like the FBI or a federal agency have access to the license plate reader data?
So our license plate data is our data. LAPD owns it. The only time another agency can get access is if they have that agreement signed with us, which has been viewed by the chief of police.
Good morning, Commissioners. John McMahon, LAPD IT. Just to add, with respect to data sharing, each of those 5 agencies have to abide by our rules. They sign with those agreements that they cannot share with ICE. Other federal governments, have to follow very strict guidelines before we share that data with them.
Thank you for that.
And is it general, without naming all the agencies, is it generally the kind of neighboring agencies so that if they cross into Beverly Hills or someone from Beverly Hills comes into LA or Santa Monica, things like that, is that the idea of the sharing amongst local?
Yes.
Can one of those 5 agencies that you share this data with, can they independently share with anyone else outside of their agency?
No, they cannot. That is part of the agreement.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I'm sorry.
That is
Captain,
part of the
go ahead.
agreement that they cannot take our data that we have an agreement with and then share with another agency. It's mutually between the agencies.
Thank you.
Commissioner Garcia?
So, question similar to President Souther's question about equity and resources. So definitely want to explore that topic a little bit more and really look at how do we ensure that other resources aren't then handled or managed in the same way where they're not deployed as it relates to crime stats or other such data, but rather from what we heard earlier, deployed based on council and or community and or donations. And so that is a slippery slope. We don't want to open that up for an opportunity when it comes to other resources and other deployment. That's important for us to have throughout the city, and every resident to be experiencing that in the same way.
Absolutely, sir, and I can assure you that the Los Angeles Police Department does not solicit funding of this type for anything. If we remove, just on a side note on that equity matter, if we remove the 100, the anomaly in Devonshire Division, in CD 12, if we remove the 100, Valley Bureau will have 15, or their foundation is 15, their basis is 15, West Bureau 16, and South Bureau 14. So they are on par with the other ones, if not for those additional 100 ALPRs that were installed during a time when they were experiencing not just the burglaries, but also hot prowls where people were inside their homes when suspects were breaking in, and the significant trend of the retail thefts.
So I located the answer to your question. So the 5 agencies that we're sharing with are Huntington Park, La Mesa, Livermore, San Luis Obispo Sheriff's Department, and West Covina.
Commissioner, any others? Vice President Shields? Public comment is over. We will run this session. We will run this session. Public comment. Well, sir, you're disrupting the meeting. You are disrupting the meeting. Sir, please stop disrupting the meeting. Commissioner Garcia, any other questions?
Can we also see the agreements? If you all can send those agreements to us, appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, Commissioners, we will share all those memorandums of agreement, and you will see that's very strict language. Those agencies that we do share with have to follow the strict guidelines in conjunction with that agreement to ensure that they don't share with agencies like ICE or other agencies that have not been approved in that agreement.
So the question I have is, as it relates to our citywide crime reduction strategy, I'm assuming that we're layering ALPR over a map of the city based on data. If we're doing that, and again, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but as Commissioner Garcia just went back to my original question, if we're doing that, how are we ensuring that we are providing some equity as it relates to this strategy if we have bureaus like the Valley that have an extraordinary number of cameras as opposed to others? What I would hope to see is a map of the city, and ALPR is placed on top of that map based on frequency of crime and responding to that. Is that what we're doing?
Yes.
That is in essence what is being accomplished, sir. With the input that we get from the areas and the bureaus and the reconciling of that data with ComStat, who is our official entity that provides that information, and an analysis of that data is exactly what is used to determine what the strategy is going to be with technology or otherwise.
And those decisions ultimately are made by the department and not donor-based.
The decisions are 100% made by the department. If a donor wishes to participate in that, that is very independent of what we do. But we consider that as part of our strategy and the access that we have and the capabilities that we have in certain areas to address certain crimes, regardless of where the technology comes from.
Hang on one second. So just one more question, if I could go back to Vice President Shields' question about pursuits. What method do we use to deploy resources when a field unit does get a hit on a stolen or flagged vehicle? How is that deployment determined, whether it's code 2, code 3, not at all?
So if there's a hit on a stolen vehicle, it would be, today we do not broadcast those hits. It wouldn't have a code attached to it. It would just be an information broadcast. Officers in the area would drive around looking for that vehicle, initiate a following, and follow standard protocols for any pursuit.
Thank you. Commissioner Sanchez-Gordon.
I too do not want to beat a dead horse, but I just need a little bit more clarification for my own sake on this equitable distribution.
Absolutely.
Commander Espinosa, you said that those 79 APLs in the Devonshire district or area were installed during a period of time where there was high burglaries and I can't even read my notes. When there were high burglaries.
And retail thefts.
When
Flash
did
mobs.
that period end? And if it has ended, why haven't the distribution been more equitable in other communities such as, well, you know, I mean, I think we all kind of know where a lot more burglaries and retail theft are occurring.
Correct.
So if they were placed there during that particular period when those crimes were occurring, when did that end? And what do you plan to do with, or what's the plan to distribute those extra 79 APLs to this map that the president talked about that overlooks the city?
Yes, ma'am. Captain Espinoza is going to answer that.
I'll address that in that the fixed ALPR cameras, once they're installed, they stay in place. And the reason for that is cost. So there is a cost to installing cameras on a pole. And it's roughly $800 to $1,200 per camera per pole. So once that camera's up there, there's a good chance that it's not going anywhere else. The way that we were looking, and Office of Operations was looking at the deployment of those cameras, it wasn't just based on current crime trends, it was historical crime trends as well. So people that were involved in that conversations were detectives that had been in the division for a decade, senior lead officers that had been in that division for a decade. The goal was to solve the immediate problem, but also the long-term and historic problems of that division as well. And it comes down to the ingress and egress routes. So you may have a hot spot area that's within a mile of where a camera was placed, but that's because that's where the traffic flow comes and goes, maybe from a freeway or a major thoroughfare. So it isn't just a short-term solution, it's really a long-term solution, but at the end of the day, we are trying to solve that trend in that moment. So it is a long-term goal for deployment.
Thank you.
Chief?
Yeah, if I could, just to talk, ALPRs are just one tool in our toolbox, and from a technology standpoint, and the fixed ALPRs are only a small percentage of our total complement of ALPRs. As I mentioned, black and whites that are out there moving around, about 1,500 of them. When you look and you put it in context, both from an equity standpoint and where they're deployed, I think it makes more sense then. And then, as the captain mentioned, as we continue to move forward, we're likely to see more fixed post ALPRs moving ahead, and we can base those deployments with an eye toward the equity issue as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. So again, so we all understand, we have a crime, we have some ALPR data based on what happened with that crime. Nobody's in custody. Does that go to the investigative division that's assigned to that crime?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And what implications do we have for allocation for investigative resources as it relates to communities across the city? If there's a crime, you've got ALPR attached to it, or it'll go to the respective division that's responsible for investigating the incident, correct?
So I can share that. So if a car is traversing through the city and it's read by a license plate reader, the crime happens at Devonshire, but the car is now in Southeast, that alert will come up. For officers that are working in patrol, you can geofence an area to get only those hits from that particular area as that car traverses that part of the city. So if you're on the border of Wilshire and your neighboring division, let's say Rampart, and you wanted to geofence your border, you could do that and just get those reads for that area. So you're not getting the whole county or the whole city. But again, as that car goes through that area, you would get those alerts.
So I have to ask this. Given that scenario, what are the challenges or risks of redundancy or duplication of effort for the same ALPR hit as it traverses the city?
It definitely could spark a lot of alerts, and it could turn into a lot of noise. So if you condense for your specific RD or your specific basic car, then you're closing that to where it's very specific. But for the investigator it is good, because if you're the detective in Devonshire and it's getting an alert in Southeast, you want that notification coming to you.
Okay, so last question. If I'm in Southeast on a hit, is there a place I can go in the department to find out if it's been someplace else or someone else is looking at it? So I don't duplicate their efforts or spin my wheels for something that's already being done. Is there a central collection point in the department where investigators can go to determine whether this hit has been elsewhere or someone else is investigating?
So if you're the investigator that put in that hit in that car, yes, it will provide a notification that that car has been read, and it would tell you which investigator's interested in that particular car.
And so if Vice President Shields is in a totally different division, she'll know when she goes to the system that I've put it in there.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I have a couple of questions.
Yes, Commissioner Clanche.
If anybody, I don't know if anybody, okay. Couple of, I think, quick questions to different people. What are the what's the life of of each camera, and then the software updates? And then connected to that, is there a cost to upgrade or repair, and who pays for it? Right, because some of these are being paid for an outside source, but then are we responsible for maintaining any upgrades, any repairs? So, yeah.
So the life of the contracts are traditionally 5 years. So if
The data contracts, the software?
the hardware, software, 5-year contract. So if
Okay.
a camera gets damaged, it gets replaced.
Okay, so, okay.
So that's the life cycle of the camera. Now, technology, as soon as it's created, it's old, and something new is coming along. So that's why we don't want a 20-year or 30-year contract. We want to
Okay, so in 5 years after, say, we start a contract for the cameras, in 5 years, we have to re-up the cost, right?
Yes.
And the cost is for the 5 years.
If the camera is still working fine, it would just be a software upgrade, potentially maintenance. But within 5 years, there could be an advanced technology that ALPR at that point is legacy. It's old and it needs to be
Yeah.
replaced anyways.
One of the concerns, this is not just to this specifically, but when we have an outside organization funding, the initial funding, then what usually happens is that after, you say, like the 5 years, and they don't necessarily keep funding, then it comes back to our budget. So that's just something I think that for us, to think about when we accept, some of these donations, right? Because we're going to be responsible for year 6, right? So just wanted to bring that up. And then about the data, I guess this is, what is the auditing cycle for us to audit? This might be an IG question, but do we have it in our cycle to audit the access to the data?
So we were audited about 2 years ago.
Okay.
My system administrator goes through daily. He gets a notification from the department when someone's separating, and he goes in and he removes them from the system.
Oh, okay.
So we have on our own quarterly inspections to make sure that we're following the special order and making sure that those that have a right to know and a need to know are using the system, and those that should not be using the system are not using the system.
Okay. And then I think Inspector General was going to say something.
The Inspector General does not have a regular reporting cycle with respect to this data source or information. And as far as I'm aware, it's not on the current audit plan. However, it's something that we could always discuss.
Yeah, we should discuss getting it at least on one cycle of our audit plan. And then the last question on the adding new cities. I'm assuming that the cities that currently we have a a MOU or some sort of agreement with, we have access to their data.
Correct.
Right.
It's mutual.
And then when a new city comes to us and says, like, I want to partner with LAPD, does that just go through the chief? Chief, does that just go through you, or does it come to commission as well?
The system goes through Innovation Management Division, Office of Constitutional Policing, to the chief's office for signature.
Okay, so it wouldn't come to the commission. Okay. Okay.
And Commissioner, just an added point of emphasis, this data in the database is also subject to audits with the State Department of Justice as well, oversees it.
How's that?
They have judicial authority to oversee the state's ALPR program, which governs all law enforcement's uses of ALPR. I believe it's State Senate Bill, the number escapes me, 35 or 53, something.
Oh, okay, that's good to know.
And the state came through 3 years ago and did an audit.
Okay, good to know. Okay, thank you. That's it.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. All right, so let me do this. We're going to go back to our agenda item, which I believe was 3C. The consent agenda item was 3C. It's the department's report relative to a donation valued at $114,000 from LA Police Foundation for West LA Division for automated license plate recognition. I move that we approve the recommendation for board action on that report. Is there a second?
I second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. And what I would like to do is thank the commander, captain, chief, for your presentation today. It's been very helpful. I know we had a lot of questions, but the public has a lot of questions, and we do appreciate your efforts, do appreciate the outcomes that we've had with ALPR, and look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you, sir.
So what I'd like to do, I try to do this if I can, it's 11:36. Let's take 10 minutes, come back for the verbal presentation relative to Black History Month. Thank you.
That was a good discussion. It was.
The commission is going to resume its session. We go back to agenda item number 4. We have a verbal presentation relative to Black History Month. We have Captain McIntyre and Sergeant Gray. Thank you for being here today, and the floor is yours.
All righty. Good morning, Commissioners, Chief, Executive Director, Acting Inspector General, and Council. Thank you for having us. I am Curtis McIntyre, Commanding Officer of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Division. With me today is Sergeant Lewis Gray, Office of Operations, also the Second Vice President of the Oscar Joe Bryant Foundation. Thanks for allowing us to share some of the contributions of the African American History Month. So, the African American History Month was created by Carter Woodson and Minister Jesse Moreland, originally known as Negro History Week. It was intended to inspire cultural pride and bring attention to African Americans. The first unofficial week-long observance was in 1926. The first official month-long recognition occurred in 1976 under President Gerald Ford's administration. Why we celebrate? To acknowledge the history of African Americans in the United States and the city of Los Angeles, to commemorate their contributions to society and American culture, to honor the lives of African American LAPD officers who paid the ultimate price to protect and to serve, to pay tribute to the contributions of African American sworn and civilian LAPD personnel. I will now turn it over to Sergeant Gray.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Honorable Police Commissioners, Chief of Police McDonald, Executive Director Sibley, City Attorney Carlos de la Guerra, and Acting Inspector General Florence Shue. I am Sergeant Lewis Gray, assigned Office of Operations. I'm here today on behalf of the Oscar Joe Bryant Foundation in honor of Black History Month, and thank you for having me. I'd like to piggyback on Captain McIntyre's points on why we recognize Black History
Excuse me, Sergeant, is your mic on?
Center button.
Oh, there we go.
Okay,
All
great,
right.
thank you.
Okay. All right. To piggyback on Captain McIntyre's points on why we recognize Black History Month, I'd like to read you a quote by Carter G. Woodson. Those who have no record of what their forebears have accomplished lose the inspiration which comes from the teaching of biography and history. This quote reminds us that knowing our history isn't just about the past, it's about inspiration, identity, and progress. When we understand what those before us have achieved, we gain motivation to push forward and build on their legacy. Recognizing Black History Month is about more than just honoring Black achievements. It's about acknowledging a vital part of American history that has shaped the country as a whole. The stories of resilience, innovation, and leadership is an inspiration to everyone, reminding us of the power of perseverance and the importance of inclusion in our shared history. Today, I'm going to briefly recognize some notable trailblazers on how their contributions to the department is an inspiration for us all. Robert William Stewart became the first African-American appointed to the department in 1889, and Georgia Ann Robinson made history as the first sworn African-American female police officer in 1916. Their stories are remarkable, especially considering the challenges of the Jim Crow era during that time. George Ann Robinson in particular was not only a trailblazer in law enforcement, but also a dedicated advocate for women's rights. Her contributions continue to be recognized, highlighting the lasting impact on both policing and social justice. Next slide, sir. Those two, along with many others, are notable trailblazers whose perseverance and accomplishments continue to inspire. Their contributions have left a lasting mark on the department and the communities we serve. While I could dedicate this entire meeting, this entire day to honoring each of these remarkable individuals today, I want to highlight a significant innovative contribution to the department that had a profound impact. Bernard C. Parks served as the 52nd Chief of Police and was the first African-American to rise through the ranks and lead the department. He strongly advocated for professionalism, accountability, and service. He established the department's 5 C's of leadership in his management papers. The 5 C's of leadership were courage, making the right decision for the right reasons; character, being principled in your decision-making; conscience, knowing right from wrong; compassion, understand and care about the impact of your decisions; commitment, be competent and committed to your duties. The 5 C's of leadership are not present in our department manuals today, but are still very consistent with our expectations of leadership. I highlighted this not just to singularly highlight Chief Parks, but to bring awareness to his story and how it works to inspire all of us and the importance of recognizing our past. Chief Parks joined the department in 1965 during the height of the Civil Rights Movement, a time of deep racial tensions. Rising through the ranks in such a challenging era was no small feat. His journey to Chief of Police is a powerful example of perseverance and leadership. Stories like his is an inspiration not only to people of color, but to everyone striving to overcome obstacles in their careers. His legacy and the other aforementioned individuals serve as a reminder that dedication, resilience, and commitment to excellence can pave the way for meaningful change and progress, no matter the challenges that we face. I'm the 2nd Vice President of the Oscar Joe Bryant Foundation, and one of the things we strive for is leveraging our past to build for the future. And no better time to expand upon that than Black History Month. Next slide. There are some these, as you see up here, are the fundamental pillars of the Oscar Joe Bryant Foundation and what we do to work towards leveraging the past to build the future. Leadership, mentorship, professional development, community engagement, and networking through cultural events. We believe mentorship plays a crucial role in strengthening our department as an organization and by fostering professional growth and developing future leaders. The Oscar Joe Bryant Foundation has an established mentorship program that pairs mentees with mentors who align with their career goals and aspirations. This initiative, ensures that mentees receive the support, insight, and direction needed to navigate challenges and advance within the organization, ultimately contributing to a stronger and more cohesive department. Community engagement is another fundamental pillar of the Oscar Joel Bryant Foundation. Giving back to the community is a large part of African American culture, as many of us either come from or have roots to lower economic backgrounds. The annual community events that we participate in, Mothers in Action, we do backpack giveaways at school for school supplies. We do Reading Across America, and every year we do a Thanksgiving senior feed. And we also participate in youth and law forums where we do Know Your Rights seminars as well. And we also give away up to $20,000 of scholarship money per year. Even as an affinity group, we take pride in knowing that our community outreach efforts foster partnerships and trust between the department and the community, not just the Oscar Joel Bryant Foundation. Lastly, networking and social and cultural events. We host a number of networking and cultural events to bring our membership together, creating a space for unity and collaboration themed around African American culture. So before I hand it back over to Captain McIntyre, I'd like to leave the board with this. Recognizing history is essential because it provides us with valuable lessons that shape our present and future. By learning from history, we minimize the struggles of today and build a stronger foundation for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant Gray. And so what slide I will leave you with at the last slide is the demographics for the department for African Americans. And so we're at 746, which is 8.5%. And for commanding officers, a little bit higher at 17 for command staff, at 14.4% currently. Now, obviously, these numbers fluctuate every day. So, but with that, what questions does the board have? Thank you, guys.
Well, thank you both for this presentation. Captain, Sergeant, it was good to meet with you earlier this year as we met with all the affinity groups as we were looking for characteristics for the next chief. I always say we stand on the shoulders of giants, and while we don't need a month to celebrate our history, it's good to see the department is still embracing this. Thank you, Chief. I'm very proud to have Robert William Stewart as a poster in my office as the first African-American police officer in this department who was born enslaved in Kentucky, as you both know.
Yes, sir.
And Charles P. Williams is on a photograph outside my door, who was the first black officer to die in a line of duty. So again, I think about those officers as I do this. But more importantly, I get to stand on the shoulders of Jess Brewer, who's the only other police officer who ever served on the Board of Police Commissioners. And I don't take that lightly. Just if I could just share a story about Chief Parks so you understand what kind of person he is. I reached out to him when he was in the selection process for chief, when there were 6 finalists, and he didn't even know me. And I reached out to him because I realized that of those 6 finalists, 5 of them had graduate degrees from USC. And I was calling him to ask, should I go to USC? And he spent about 20 minutes with a total stranger pitching the university to me and telling me I should go nowhere else. So I did get to meet him later, and for that, I'm very thankful. The only question I would have or challenge for you, so what I would like to see is that you showed us the demographics. I happen to know, obviously, a number of African-American officers in this department. I'd like to see the educational backgrounds of those officers that we have in this department. Many of them have degrees, advanced degrees, and I'd like to understand what that percentage is and what degrees they have, if you could give me that information.
Yes, sir. We did research it based upon your request last time, and so I will get those figures over to you, but I do have those stats.
Great, thank you very much. Really appreciate the presentation. Vice President Shields.
I don't think I have any questions. I just want to thank you for a wonderful presentation, and also thank you for all the work that you all are doing with the Joel Oscar Bryant Foundation. Did I say that right? Oscar Joel Bryant. I knew I was going to mix it up. Sorry. I know it is OJB. But it's just such an important part of, the connection the department has with the community. And I think the affinity groups are so essential to that, not only helping within the department, but also with the relationship with the community. And so if there's ever any community events that you all are preparing and need us to attend, please do not hesitate. Very, very thankful for the work that you're doing, both on the mentoring front, the relationship building, youth programs. I just can't say it enough that it's such a wonderful representation of the department. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Kalanche.
Thank you. I'll be brief. Thank you for all the work that you do. I have a question about how OJB is maybe participating in recruitment efforts, or if that's something that your affinity group has kind of discussed to get more African Americans to want to join the department.
Absolutely. Recruitment onto the department is a main goal of ours. Obviously, we depend on our membership, able to recruit officers that are the same demographics like ours. One of the things that we've been trying to do is to get into the academy classes to promote our organization to gain more membership, as well as when we do our community outreach, we are definitely, promoting the wonderful opportunities that this job offers, and that it's accessible to all. And so that is a big part of one of our fundamental goals that we work on, definitely, is recruiting for the department as well.
Yeah, we took a little bit of a stumble doing the civil unrest, but we're trying to re-engage and explain what a great career this is and what a great opportunity it is to be in law enforcement, because it's a wonderful profession, giving back.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Garcia.
Thank you for the presentation and for highlighting the folks that you did for one of the slides, one of them being Regina Scott. I got to work with her quite a bit, and she provided quite a bit of mentorship in my years working in the Valley, and so appreciate what you all do, and keep it up, and if there's anything we can do to support, please count on us.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Speaking of recruitment, I don't know if you guys are aware, but his dad was a retired commander on the job, and so I worked with him when I was working for Chief Pasinger, and so to see other generations doing this work, it's a beautiful thing, and so I just want to acknowledge his dad as well, being a retired LAPD. Lou Gray. Louis Gray, sorry.
Commissioner Sanchez Gordon.
I also want to echo my congratulations and thank you and thanks to all that you do. And I recently attended my first academy graduation about 2 weeks ago, and it was so inspirational. I just, I thought it was a beautiful moment, not only for the graduates, but also for the families. But one thing that I did notice, and I still think about, is the low numbers of African American graduates. And I understand that there's been, some political issues or whatever that have contributed to the decrease, but I hope that those numbers increase, because it's a reflection of our community as well, and I think that LAPD should reflect the community, and we need more African American graduates. I have a family member who recently retired from the LAPD, and it's through the family, through marriage. Lieutenant Brian Roberts, you probably know him, and he was also very active and very vocal, and so I just wanted to share that with you, that we've got this connection as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. And again, thank you for your efforts this past Saturday at the Amundsen Recruit Training Center, along with Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity. They had their annual event. They had about 50 young people there. And it was actually encouraging to hear some of those young people comment about positive interactions they've had with law enforcement in their respective neighborhoods, and that several of them were there because they did actually want to become LAPD officers someday. So again, thank you for your efforts. Thank you for the presentation. And if there's anything we can do to support you, you know where we are. Thank you.
And I do want to be invited to your events.
Absolutely.
I do
Yes,
want my name
we'd
out.
love to have all of you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much. We will now recess into closed session. Thank you. Oops, sorry. Oh, my error. I want to give the chief an opportunity to make some comments on some data from earlier today.
Yeah, no,
Sorry.
thank you, Commissioner, or Mr. President, I appreciate that. Earlier, just in response to clarification on the homicides and shooting, I had mentioned that there were some multiple homicides, there were multiple shootings. But I'll give you just an overview. On the homicide analysis we have, compared to 2024, the city's seen a year-to-date decrease of 22.2% or 10 homicides, so that news is good. However, for the past 4 weeks, ending 2/22, homicides were up by 12 compared to the prior 4 weeks. So we're talking still early in the year, so the numbers are not what they'll be in the later year as far as affecting percentages. Year-to-date citywide, victim shot is down 23 compared to 2024, but during the past 4 weeks, victims shot were up. There was a big blip there, 37.7% compared to the prior 4 weeks. For the 4-week comparison, the following areas have seen an increase in victims shot, and those are Southeast, which is up 71%, which is 12 versus 7. Topanga, up 500%, which is 6 versus 1. And Southwest is up 100%, 8 versus 4. So we're seeing increased gang activities in those 3 areas, and we're focused our resources to be able to address those. But just thank you for the opportunity to clarify that.
Chief, thank you for the clarification. Are there any comments or questions from any of the commissioners? Okay, thank you. We'll now recess into closed session. Thank you very much.
The Board of Police Commissioners will now recess into closed session to discuss agenda items 5A1, 5A2, 5B1 in accordance with Government Code 54957.
The commission has concluded closed session. We'll have a readout by Executive Director Sibley. Mr. Sibley?
Thank you, Mr. President. So, 5A, at the regular meeting of the Board of Police Commissioners on February 25th, 2025, during the closed session, the board made the following findings by a 4-0 vote. 5A1, officer-involved shooting 014-24. For tactics, tactical debrief, 1 police officer 3. For drawing and exhibition of a firearm, in policy, no further action, 1 police officer 3. And for lethal use of force, in policy, no further action, 1 police officer 3. And 5A2, which is a non-tactical unintentional discharge, case number 016-24. For tactics, tactical debrief, 1 Sergeant 1. And for unintentional discharge, negligent discharge, administrative disapproval, 1 Sergeant 1. And I'll pass over to you, sir, for item 5B.
Thank you. So I'd like to say that my fellow commissioners and I are pleased to appoint Matthew Barragan as the Inspector General for the Los Angeles Police Department. Mr. Barragan is coming to us from the United States Attorney's Central District Office, where he's most recently worked in the Civil Rights Section. Mr. Barragan is a dedicated public servant who brings a breadth of experience representing the people of the Central District in civil rights matters. We are excited to have someone of his caliber join our team, and we look forward to his service in this role. We look forward to him joining us in the coming weeks. And with that, and I should also add that he was voted upon today with a 5-0 vote by the commission. If there's nothing else, I'm going to move that we adjourn today's meeting. Is there a second?
I second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.